Would you please introduce yourselves?
I'll let Maria start.
Okay, this is Maria. I'm so happy to be here and thank all of you also. And Makai, is this when I'm supposed to just do my little
Not
spiel?
that.
Yes?
We introduce ourselves first.
Okay.
Okay, ahead,
So,
Mary.
all right. So I am ancient and have been involved in community activities and homelessness and etc. ever since the 60s. And then I did construction for 50 years, including the installation of disabled accessible necessities. And it was only a few years ago when I became utterly disabled. My mobility was totally impaired. And so I then needed to be the recipient of services and or at least discover that the things that purported to be disabled, accessible, actually were. Lo and behold, not only did I personally get impacted to the point of almost demise due to the um, proclamation that they were disabled accessible but weren't in terms of a shelter that I needed to be in. I also discovered that many of the other facilities that I had access to were not legitimate in terms of passing code in my construction business. So the lack of accountability and reliability and actuality when it comes to disabled uh, uh, stuff. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the saxophone and I can't get it turned off. So someone's practicing right next to me. Um, Hold on, let me see if I can. Yeah, I asked him to just stop for a minute. Um, so at any rate, I am very concerned, and I know so many beloved people, many of whom are on this call that are disabled, and it is utterly cruel, crude, and criminal to neglect people that, through no fault of their own, not that anything is could be legitimated that way anyway, but we need help and we need not to be hurt. And I have personally been hurt, and I'm constantly intervening, whether it's sidewalks or bathrooms or grab bars or handrails or curbs or slopes, on ramps. It's we really need to do better, and we can, because this is sort of common sense. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'll stay on. And again, thank you.
So thanks, Maria. I'm Mary Baim Steinberg. Um, I started doing this as a member of the Homeless Commission. And during that time, I got to tour the Pathways Care Center, which had all this great signage for disabled accessibility, and all of it was a complete lie. There was not a single ADA bathroom in there. There were all the ramps were the wrong heights. They had a common refrigerator for everyone's pharmaceuticals. They didn't have hypodermic safety. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and those things stuck out for me. And I heard a lot of excuses about how, oh, it was just too hard, or it was this, or it was that. And and that's why I really wanted to talk to you today, because since then I've become a commissioner in the Human Welfare Commission. Right now I'm the chair. Of course, I'm speaking as an individual, but we're still having problems even getting organizations that work with unhoused people, and even those who don't, to comply with federal, state, and local law on disability. Um, Most organizations only have to self-report, and they just check a box and send it in, whether it's reality or not. What I'd really like for all of you to understand is that disability is still a great stigma in this country. It's not considered polite to talk about your needs, where this is concerned. And this doesn't just pertain to people with mobility issues. For a long time, CIL only supported people with mobility issues, but there's a whole wide range of invisible disabilities, beyond mental illness. There's also deep chronic illness that has devastating effects on your day-to-day life. Even being able to communicate when you're having some sort of reaction or episode. And for that, it's necessary to comply with the code. The problem we ended up with at Pathways is that they told us that either it all shuts down or it can't be compliant with the ADA. So what I tried to get them to do was make it safe but non-conforming. We're still waiting to have a group of people with diverse disabilities be able to go through and vet it for safety, because there's usually more than one way to do things that will be okay. And we still aren't there yet. And the abuses that I found there were from 2020. And every time I hear, oh, but the pandemic, I like to remind people that as a public health hazard, not having public bathrooms means that there were people defecating on the street, and there still are. I've seen it happen. This is inhumane and awful for unhoused people, and it's a public health hazard. But we still haven't gotten a whole lot of movement on that either. So that's why I'm involved, and I welcome any questions you might have. But I'd also like to add, just before I end, that this is an equity issue too. There are people that have pushed a soft eugenics kind of agenda, where they say, oh, but if we didn't have to deal with all these disabled people who are such a nuisance, we could help more people. But anyone can become disabled at any time, and there's a reason that there's a law protecting people with disabilities, and we can't start letting that slip. And I want to also point out that resources, healthcare resources, job resources are even more limited for instance, the BIPOC community, people who identify as trans. So this is an equity issue on more than one level, and it's disproportionately affecting those people. I have a whole page of statistics here, but Shelterforce ran a series of articles a few years ago talking about race and disability and race and disability and homelessness, as well as just disability and homelessness. So I would encourage you all to look for that too.
Let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay. Mackay Freeman, Systems Change at the Center for Independent Living. So I'm going to start. First question. What is one thing I'd like to relate about people with disabilities? Um, well, I like to relate we're not helpless, even though we may need assistance. We have fought and struggled historically for the independent living rights and disability law. And for that, I'm not just talking about the American Disabilities Act, talking about like before, we have provisions in HUD. We have provisions in the access code. And yes, it is unfortunate that Mark had a wonderful presentation talking about racism and economic justice. But there is prevailing. It's called ableism. And for many of our unhoused brothers and sisters who find themselves homeless, getting the information, and also on the other side of the table, having to some providers to understand civil rights, the dignified positions that our civil rights laws provide us can tremendously mitigate the ill health, sometimes addiction, and recidivism of homelessness. So for those individuals who are here, and as you've heard from Mary and my colleague or her lived experience, there's tremendous energy just to survive being in house. Moreover, when you come into a shelter and the trauma of the lived experience being in house, but the trauma of going and thinking you have shelter and realizing you can't use the bathroom, realizing if you're low vision, if you have medication, that there's no safe place to fit your needs. To ask and question. Maybe you don't know how to talk about accommodation and what your needs are. But when you articulate, maybe someone says, we don't do that. So this is how, and this is why I say it, we are not helpless. For those who have experienced homelessness and want to convey it, my position here at the Center for Independent Living and System Change is to help people understand, execute their civil rights and teach so that they can empower themselves with this information. But it's very hard to do that when there, and I don't know why this is, an understanding of civil rights laws for us, which cross-cuts socioeconomic and ethnicity and age. That's one area that independent living centers, advocacy organizations can help providers to understand your obligations and rights when providing services. I will let you answer the second question, and I'll answer. Is someone going to ask the second question? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Did you call my name, Makai?
No, no, they haven't sent the streets.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, again.
What if we put the question in the chat?
Sure.
I heard sure.
Is it in the chat? Okay. Okay, do you want to take that night? You just,
Well, I would say that first of all, ensure compliance with the ADA. But if you have any difficulties with it, speak up and take it all the way up the chain. Advocate for people with disabilities because a lot of times, especially people who are on the street who are disabled are already worried about reprisals. Um, they're not necessarily going to self-advocate and they don't necessarily believe from what I've heard from other people, not being on the street myself, that anyone's actually going to be able to do anything. And without the active participation of people in agencies that are being contracted to help out with programs, this can't continue. Um, More, I would say that whenever you're inaugurating a new program, be sure to ask a lot of questions have a list of different organizations that handle disabilities. Go, talk to the Center for the Blind, talk to any number of organizations dealing with invisible illness, mental illness, mobility problems, so that you can be sure that you're being inclusive. I've often heard that you know, people people got very hostile to me when I started talking about how TOPA wasn't inclusive in a number of ways, and no one wanted to hear it. Nothing changes unless we're all collaborating with each other, and we can all be open to making the necessary modifications so that everyone can be included.
yes, I totally agree with that. There are many disability organizations, independent living organizations that are here to be a resource for housing, for shelter providers, and for their clients. So, if you don't have a relationship with your closest independent living center, please do call and ask how can you do this? Do X? What is available for this client? How can we transportation to get our clients to a doctor? Make those linkages, making link with social workers and even social workers having connect with disability organizations. They're here and want to make connections with you. As well as their financial resources to help make your sites or service more accessible. I'll let Maria Sol talk. Go
Thank you
ahead.
thank you very much. I just want to emphasize a few things. Number one, we can study, we can research, we can be academic, brilliant, amazing people. But if we don't talk directly to those that are directly involved, as in the disabled, we really can't know what they need and help them discover what they need. And when it was mentioned that so many people on the street have so little access to any advocacy for themselves, they also have very little trust. Because I, as a professional service worker and contractor, if I can't get any legitimate response from city officials that through their city directly admit that they are out of compliance while they tell me emphatically that they do and have and must follow the law, and I know for a fact, personally and professionally, that they don't, where do you go? If the very people that are there, responsible and being paid a lot, even the contractors, I could have charged so much more for this kind of work, disability accessible, this, that, and the other, showers, bathrooms, etc. I didn't. But the point is, there's a lot of money being spent, and especially with regard to pathways. I mean, oh my God. And they were the ones that I could not stay with because I would die if I had stayed there. So I'm not getting help in a shelter if it's going to kill me to be there. And yet they're still carrying on. So there's got to be some, benign accountability. No heads have to roll. But I know that if I hadn't been code compliant, I would have been shut down immediately and fined. Aside from the fact that I would have been frowned on by the universe for being out of integrity, I would just like us to remember why we're all doing what we're doing. It's because we recognize we're human beings. And as Mary said, this can happen. I never expected it to happen to me. I've been holding up houses. I've been on roofs. I've been just, I didn't expect my body to suddenly give up. And then I'm homeless. Why? Because no one will hire me. It's like, oh my God, this is a bottomless pit that no one deserves to be in. We've got to come together and figure out whether we want to just perpetuate a problem because there's a great deal of money to be made, and or just be calloused, and or care, because eventually any and every one of us could end up there. And none of these lowered curbs or ramps hurt mamas with new babies in strollers or people with shopping carts. It helps everyone to have good bathrooms. It's like, all right, anyway, I'll try to be quiet now, but I just, when I look at someone who I can just see glaring at me, as Mary again said, you just are a nuisance, a problem. All of you old people or disabled people or this, that, and the other, it's like, go away. No, we're here to stay. And I just beseech everyone to talk to us. For those of you that want to actually help us, you've got to hear from us. Thank you.
And I think lastly, now we have this directive about seeking away encampments. We want people to be off the street and invisible. Now's the time to have double down on accessibility and access. And it's not just a ramp, and special bathroom, although it is, it's also making up documentation, our forms, in accessible format so people can have and make informed consent. And as I said, there have been and there's decades of help out there. And we need to start listening to our unhoused individuals' needs, also called accommodation, to mitigate these barriers and where it's maybe for a short term, there cannot be anything done to mitigate an architectural barrier. It does not mean that's where it stops. There's what's called an interactive process where we problem solve. How can we work to meet someone's needs? So it's just not stopping and saying, oh, well, this is not possible. That's not the requirement in the ADA. It's to look at what can be achieved to meet someone's needs. And again, I will put my name in the chat. I would love to share the resources with individuals and providers to enhance their compliance. Thank you.
If I could just add, to be very, very careful with demands about new housing that's being built. I've had a lot of tenants come to me because the housing that was built for them was substandard condition. Most recently, it was the Standard, which is a giant building across from the university, and the tenant's apartment was full of mold. And their solution to it was just to wipe it down with some bleach. That isn't proper mitigation. And because the building was streamlined through, they had really failed to do some things that could have been done in CEQA to avoid water coming up from the bottom of the building. So please, all of you that are in the housing business, be very, very careful about streamlining.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear the claps in the room?
This last time, yeah. Thanks.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of claps along the way, so I just want to reassure you, we've been here, we've been listening. Okay, so we went through the questions about biggest misconceptions out there about working with persons with disabilities. We talked about what are you hopeful that people will be doing? You know, we have a diverse audience here today from a lot of different backgrounds. What are we hoping that they can do? At this time, I want to ask the audience if they have any questions for our three panelists here today. They are experts with lived expertise and regular expertise in disability access. And I'm seeing at least one hand up, so I'm going to start walking around the room. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I came in late, so I'm so glad we got some more questions. But I was just thinking about some of like the huge, burden of work and distraction that, the dismantling of Roe versus Wade caused, and how that we may or may not have been blindsided by that. And then I think about the ADA and American with Disabilities Act and all the title distinctions that come with that. And I was wondering if you folks have felt a need to be more vigilant about those protections. And if so, is there anything that others could do to support that effort, that may or may not be undermined? And if you've seen any erosion of civil rights or other rights related to the ADA?
Yes, I think it's high time we be very vigilant and unapologetic of rights that many in the disabled community have went to jail for, have fought with litigation to come out of institutions. And we're still dealing with the barrier of not being visible in terms of people seeing us and being heard. The high rates of Black and brown individuals, many with disabilities, who are on the street. It's not by accident, as we heard from Mark. There are many institutions, systemic racism, policies and procedures. And in terms of Rosie Gray, my goodness, how is it for mothers living who are unhoused, who may not be able to take advantage of reproductive rights, medical care? We live in California, but that's something that gives me great pause when I think of women with disabilities in states where reproductive health care is banned. It is time for us to be unapologetic, for us to raise our voice, say and don't give up. The system is designed to disincentivize, to demoralize, to disenfranchise. And if you understand, I'm not saying don't depress, I'm not saying don't at times feel discouraged, but I'm saying whatever you can do, whoever, because that's on to whoever can support you and be a good friend. Don't give up. Fight harder and in connection with one another. You know, in my job, and just looking homeless individuals so generous. Nations don't have anything. They like my first job was in a homeless center. I used to help find education and job opportunities, and to not everyone was so helpful and generous to me. Many times those who didn't have anything to give gave a kind word of support. And I look at where now we are going or being asked to harass people in encampments, but we're not asked to do whatever we can do to find housing subsidies that you could be find housing with dignity. So that's a great question, and my answer is to don't give up. As a provider, it must be a lot of hard work, a lot of time to deal with systems where the rationale is not enough money, and that is true. But there are resources and connections that you can avail yourself of to make the load a little easier. And I hope you find those networks and people that can support you. And for those who are unhappy, maybe on this, maybe don't give up. You are worth so much and more. And our ancestors who lived enslaved men, you are living in a time that they can only dream of. And so your aspirations, your dreams, and when you transform your difficulties, they do not become suffering. So I'll put my contact in the chat. I wish the best for everyone, and let's continue to stand up for ourselves and for those others in need. Thank you.
May I jump in for the moment that I have here, please, Mikhail? Yes? Is it okay if I jump in?
She's
Yes,
nodding.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just need to respond to two of the things that Mikhail just said. Number one, and I humbly, respectfully disagree that there isn't enough money. We make up most of the money that exists because it isn't really there anyway. So it's an illusion. And we're watching this all over the planet. Some have an awful lot, and they're okay with the rest of us not having much, if anything at all. So it's a really fundamental, simple question of, do we recognize we're all human beings on this planet? And as Bucky Fuller said many years ago, it's either going to be everyone or it's going to be no one. So I'm not just advocating and barely staying alive myself personally. I'm on the street dealing with all the folk that are getting bulldozed and all the hungry folk and the people that don't have water, don't have porta potties, don't have dumpsters, while everyone complains about all the garbage, while all the neighborhoods get their garbage picked up every week. So it's about just stopping and remembering that we're all in this human family. And until we care and until we share, and recognize that there but for the grace of God go I, just like paradise never expected to burn up with everyone becoming homeless? Or what if there's an earthquake? We're not prepared. And yet, over the eons, there's been simple, humble, good people that reach out and help one another. That's how come we're still here. So it's really about that. And then, secondly, when it comes to don't give up, I'll tell you how I managed not to give up. I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm starting to cry. If I can help one person today, I am so grateful to be alive. And it would be such a blessing if this old hippie saying, make love and not war, would come back. And the power of love rather than the love of power would come back, because this is returning to the basics. And I'm so grateful that all of you are here, because I know we all care. But now we have to quit wasting what money we say is there. If there weren't so many lawsuits, we wouldn't be wasting that money. If they would prevent harm, there wouldn't be all of these emergency services required, right? It's like in construction, deferred maintenance. When folks finally decide, hopefully before the whole structure falls down, to do something, it always costs more when it could have been done right the first time, right? So gratitude gives birth to generosity. And if each of us are so grateful to be alive, and then if this is my last day, how do I want to be? Well, that informs me. It definitely does, because I never know if this is my last day. So I want it to be a great day. I want to come from my heart. I want to care about any and everyone, no matter how they look or behave. Because until we walk in their shoes, we better not judge. We better not. Because I'm telling you, I've asked people on the city council, hey, you know what? If you were out on the street today with nothing, in the cold and the rain, for 1 day, 2 days, much less 3 days, how would you feel? Maybe a little more anxious, maybe a little more stressed, maybe a little grumpier. Come on. We can see everyone in us and us in everyone. We can. So thank you. And please don't give up, because life is precious. And I'd like us all to get over this next few weeks, and then hopefully, etc. So long live the hippies and bless all of you. Thank you.
If I could also just say a few words to sum up, I think it would be really useful. I know that it's difficult to go against the current. I know that there's a lot of pressure from on top to do things a certain way, but if that way isn't working, it's got to change. So I would encourage all of you, when you have a position of safety, to speak up for people that don't, because not everyone's doing that. And, getting back to pathways and Maria talking about being there, I found out someone was made to sleep in their own waste while staff was mocking him because of lack of access to a toilet. It took me 2 years to convince anyone to order an ADA porta potty that I had to source for them. And then they put it in an inaccessible place, and they won't let us inspect for it. The people who are your clients, people like Maria, and people who advocate for them, we're not the enemy, but we need to work together if this is going to change, and we need to listen to each other. So please always just recognize that if someone has a criticism, it's not your goals. Maybe it's just the methods. And it's not a personal thing. It's just about making it want to work so that people can survive without fear. And we are also grateful for everyone who works so hard to make that happen. But if we can all just be really open to each other, to questions and criticisms when things are not working, then I think that that will make the whole system work much better for everyone. So thank you all for that. And please remember, people that oppose maybe a certain proposal doesn't necessarily mean they're against your objective. So just ask, what would make this more palatable for you? Um, and I hope that we can all work together in the future to make things come together. And I left my email address in the comments in case anyone wants to contact me and discuss anything further. Thanks so much.
Time for maybe one last question or comment, if there's anyone from the audience or from the, or from the Zoom call would like to come up to you and ask some questions of our panelists. Not seeing any additional discussion. So I think final comments from the panelists.
Mary, do you have some final comments?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. Makai, were you talking to me?
Do you have any final comments?
Final comments.
Do you want to start?
I'm on mute. Hmm.
Yeah, we can hear you this time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Final comment. Access your local disability organization to learn how you can increase your access and accessibility policies and infrastructure. If you are in East Bay, there's a specific ADA center that all they do is work with businesses and nonprofits to give you the resource to comply with the access laws you and your clients need. Um, Double down on empowerment, provide and share resources to get people the health, job training, and resources they need. I can't emphasize that enough. And um, now don't settle for the okie doke. If you see something that is not right, something can be better. Um, Advocate for it. It will only help your job be easier. It will provide and enhance the dignity of the client. Um, and uplift them So, and I put my contact in the chat. This, this is what I do every day. So, thank you very much.
If there's an extra minute for me, I would also like to say, I want to talk a little more, just a tiny bit more about methods. I understand about climate crisis. I understand about the need for funding for housing, but also what's happening a lot in our communities is we have a lot of people with legitimate life and death worries who are being pitted against each other. And a lot of these public-private partnerships, what matters most to the partners, the private partners, is profit. So I would hope we can all work together because California has an economy bigger than that of Germany right now. And they have free universal health care and free universal higher education. There's no reason that we couldn't tax Google, among other places. The bond measures that are on the ballot now are really painful for me to see because I know disabled older people in formerly redlined areas who got their houses back when they were secretaries or teachers or whatever else, and that was still possible. These things are putting more people in our community at risk, and I'm really hoping that we can tax the people that actually have the money to give. And I believe that that kind of taxation should also be supporting rent control, so we're not driving moms and pops out for big corporate landlords who are never going to care about anything. And I have a plan for how to convert for-profit housing into nonprofit housing, and I would love to hear other people's ideas on that. So I'd love to have a conversation. But one more thing, the more we increase population around here, the harder it is to evacuate an area. And that's extra hard for people with disabilities. And it's extra hard for people with disabilities who can't ride bikes. So please, please, please be conscious of that when you're advocating for things. Thank you very much.
That was awesome.
I think with that, we're gonna go to break.